When a man chooses silence, it's not just the absence of words, it's the presence of power. When you stop reaching out, stop trying to fix things, and stop chasing her attention, something profound begins to unfold in her mind. At first, she might interpret your silence as indifference, maybe even arrogance. She might think you're playing games, trying to manipulate her emotions. But as time passes, that perception starts to shift. What she once viewed as a game becomes a mirror, forcing her to confront what she truly feels and what she has lost. Silence, when used from a place of strength and self-respect, becomes one of the most powerful teachers in any relationship dynamic. In the beginning, your withdrawal triggers confusion. She notices the quiet, the space, the missing messages that used to flood her phone. She checks her notifications out of habit, expecting to see your name, expecting your energy to fill her day as it once did. When it doesn't, that absence starts to echo. At first, she might tell herself that she's fine, that she doesn't need to hear from you, that this is what she wanted. But human emotions don't obey logic. The more she tries to convince herself that your silence doesn't matter, the more she realizes it does. The energy you once brought into her life begins to stand out precisely because it's gone. Your silence begins to create emotional space, and in that space, her mind starts to wander. She replays the moments you shared, conversations, laughter, the times you made her feel seen and understood. Those memories begin to surface at random moments, triggered by songs, places, or little things that remind her of you. That's how the mind works. It fills silence with meaning, and that meaning often turns into reflection. When you were always available, she never had the chance to miss you. But now, in the quiet, she starts to question her own decisions. She starts to wonder if pushing you away was the right move. Silence doesn't just create distance, it magnifies emotion. It forces her to sit with thoughts she avoided when your presence was constant. Maybe she remembers the last conversation you had, the tone of your voice, the look in your eyes when you realized you were done chasing. That image stays with her because it represents something rare, restraint. A man who doesn't beg, who doesn't try to convince her to stay, sends a message louder than any words could. That message is simple. I value myself enough not to fight for someone who isn't choosing me. As weeks pass, that quiet confidence begins to work on her subconscious. Women are emotionally intuitive. They feel energy. When that steady masculine energy disappears, they notice. It's not about missing your words. It's about missing how your presence made them feel. Maybe she once took your calls for granted. Maybe she ignored your texts thinking you'd always be there. But now your silence has changed the rhythm. There's no longer that safety net. She's left alone with her own inner dialogue, and that's when the reflection deepens. She begins to think about your last moments together. She starts asking herself questions like, did he move on? Did he stop caring? Was he really that strong? That uncertainty begins to eat away at her composure. Every day you remain silent, the image of you grows stronger in her mind, not as the man who needed her, but as the man who walked away with dignity. That's what gets her attention. It's not anger or resentment, it's curiosity mixed with regret. She starts to feel the emotional weight of your absence, and the more she tries to ignore it, the heavier it becomes. Silence also reveals the imbalance that once existed. When you were constantly reaching out, trying to maintain connection, she didn't need to put in effort. You carried the emotional load. But when you go silent, that dynamic collapses. The effort now shifts to her. She begins to experience what it feels like to be on the other side, to wonder, to wait, to think about what you're doing. It's an internal tug of war between pride and emotion. On one hand, she doesn't want to admit she misses you. On the other, she can't stop thinking about you. That's the emotional space where real introspection happens. Over time, that silence becomes a mirror reflecting her behavior back at her. She begins to see how she acted, maybe how she dismissed your effort, how she took your consistency for granted, or how she tested your patience. In the absence of your energy, those actions don't feel empowering anymore. They feel empty. Because deep down, everyone craves to be understood, valued, and loved genuinely. And when that energy is gone, she realizes how rare it truly was. Silence makes her see your worth without you having to explain it. What's powerful about this stage is that your silence doesn't just affect her emotionally, it affects her perception of you. In a world where people constantly chase validation, your ability to walk away calmly sets you apart. It tells her you're not a man driven by insecurity or fear of loss. You're driven by self-respect, and that is magnetic. It challenges her understanding of you. She starts comparing you to other men, men who chase, who beg, who try to prove their worth, and she sees that you're different. That difference stays in her mind. Eventually, that silence becomes the loudest thing in the room. It's no longer about what you said or did, it's about what you didn't say and what you chose not to do. Every day you remain silent, you communicate emotional strength, patience, and boundaries. You're showing, not telling, that your peace matters more than temporary attention. And the more she feels that, the more she starts to question herself. She might scroll through your social media wondering if you're doing fine, if you've moved on. She might hear from mutual friends that you're focused, calm, maybe even thriving. That realization can spark both admiration and regret, because now she sees that you never needed her validation to feel complete. What's interesting is how silence plays with time. In the beginning, time feels neutral. But as days turn into weeks and weeks into months, the silence takes on weight. It becomes a presence in itself. Each passing day without contact reinforces your decision. You're showing consistency through absence. And as she feels that, it begins to shape how she views you and herself. The man who once seemed emotionally available is now a mystery. The distance forces her to reevaluate her own role and why things ended. She may start realizing that her actions contributed to the silence, that she pushed away something genuine. That kind of reflection can't happen in noise, it only happens in quiet. Silence is not about ignoring her, it's about choosing yourself. It's about stepping back so both of you can see clearly, so she can recognize what she lost, and you can maintain your self-worth. It's about emotional discipline. Because the truth is, when a man goes silent with intention, not out of bitterness, but out of strength, it creates respect. It resets the emotional balance. It teaches her that your presence is not guaranteed and that love, when not valued, withdraws. As the months pass, she may go through phases: anger, confusion, denial, longing, and finally realization. That realization is often painful because it comes with the understanding that your silence was never punishment, it was consequence. The consequence of her choices, her behavior, and her lack of reciprocity. And in that understanding, she learns one of the deepest lessons a person can learn in love. When someone values themselves enough to walk away, that silence speaks louder than any argument, any explanation, or any closure conversation. Some point, she might reach out, maybe with a casual message, maybe with a hint of nostalgia, maybe with an apology wrapped in curiosity. That's when you'll know your silence worked not as a tactic, but as a truth revealer. Because silence doesn't chase, it attracts clarity. It exposes what's real and what's not. And if she doesn't reach out, that too is clarity. You learn that her absence was her answer all along. The power of silence lies in what it does internally as well. It's not just about what happens in her mind, it's about what happens in yours. When you choose silence, you're reclaiming your emotional energy. You're no longer pouring into something that drains you. You're redirecting that energy into growth, purpose, and peace. That shift doesn't just make her notice your absence, it makes you stronger, calmer, and more centered. That's the transformation she senses even from a distance. So when you go silent for months, remember this: you're not trying to make her miss you. You're allowing her to feel what life is like without your presence. And in that process, she begins to see the difference between noise and value, attention and connection, comfort and meaning. Silence, when it comes from self-respect, is an emptiness. It's a statement. It tells her and the world that your energy is sacred and only those who appreciate it get to experience it. And that realization in her mind is what makes your silence unforgettable. When you go silent for months, you're not just creating a distance, you're creating a test of emotional depth. It's one thing for someone to say they care, but it's another to feel that care when you're no longer around to feed it. Silence becomes the truth serum that exposes how real her attachment was. When your voice disappears, when your presence no longer fills her world, she's left to face the reality of what she truly felt for you. It's in that silence that her emotional connection or lack of it is revealed. At first, the quiet might feel like freedom to her. She might even feel relieved. No more messages, no more emotional responsibility, no more pressure. She might think she's moving on. But that initial relief is deceptive. It's surface level. Because emotional bonds don't dissolve overnight, they fade in waves, and silence amplifies those waves. The absence of your energy forces her to confront the emotional impact you had on her life, whether she's ready to admit it or not. When you were consistently reaching out, she didn't have to question your feelings. You were predictable. Your messages, your effort, your presence, it all gave her a sense of control. She knew you cared. She knew you'd always come back, no matter how she acted. That certainty became her comfort zone. But once you go silent, that control is gone. The emotional pattern she was used to suddenly collapses, and that's when her attachment gets tested. Because now she's left wondering what happened to the man who used to be so available. At first, she might rationalize it. She'll tell herself that you're just busy, that you've moved on, or that you finally got tired. But as the days stretch into weeks, those rationalizations stop comforting her. They start to hurt. Because deep down, she feels the emotional disconnection and it bothers her. The curiosity that once felt harmless now becomes a need to know. She might start thinking about what you're doing, who you're with, whether you still think about her. That curiosity is the seed of emotional attachment growing stronger in your absence. Silence has a way of magnifying emotional truth. If she truly had no feelings for you, your silence won't affect her deeply. She might move on, maybe find someone else and not think much of it. But if she was emotionally connected to you, that silence won't go unnoticed. It will trigger her on multiple levels, emotionally, psychologically, even physically. She'll start missing your voice, your energy, the little things she once ignored. Every time she picks up her phone and doesn't see your name, it stings a little more. That's her attachment being tested. She might even try to distract herself. She'll stay busy, talk to friends, maybe date other people. But distractions only mask the symptoms, they don't cure them. Because no matter how much she tries to suppress it, the emotional connection you built doesn't disappear. It lingers in the back of her mind. Late at night, when she's alone, when there's nothing to occupy her thoughts, that's when she feels it most. Silence gives her no escape. She's forced to feel the absence of what was once familiar. The most interesting part is how her perception of you starts to change over time. In the beginning, she might have seen you as the one who cared too much, who was too available, too easy to reach. But now, after months of silence, she starts to see you differently. The same man she once thought she could read now feels unpredictable. The emotional certainty she had in you has vanished, replaced by mystery. That shift alone can reignite attraction because unpredictability is powerful. It creates curiosity, and curiosity is often the first step back toward emotional interest. Your silence also tests her sense of emotional security. Most women, when they feel emotionally connected to someone, rely on that connection for stability. When that stability disappears, they feel it deeply. The man who once made her feel grounded, valued, or admired is now gone, and she's left questioning what that means. Was the connection real? Did she push too far? Did she underestimate his strength? That self-questioning can be unsettling because it forces her to confront her own emotions honestly. She can't hide behind ego or pride anymore. The absence of your communication also brings contrast. She'll interact with other men, but none of them will feel the same. That's because the energy you carried, your calmness, your certainty, your masculine presence was unique. When a man with emotional depth goes silent, it's not like when a shallow man disappears. Your silence carries weight because it comes from composure, not avoidance. It's the silence of someone who knows his worth and doesn't need validation. That kind of energy lingers in her mind, even when you're not around. As time passes, her emotions start cycling. Some days she'll feel angry that you're not chasing, angry that you've stayed quiet for so long. That anger is not hatred, it's frustration born from attachment. Because deep down, she expected you to keep proving your feelings. She expected you to reach out eventually, to break the silence. But every day that you don't, she's forced to face the possibility that you may never come back. That realization shakes her sense of control, and that's where her emotional growth begins. Eventually, her mind begins replaying your last interactions. She'll remember things you said, warnings she ignored, moments where you were patient despite her pulling away, and she'll start to feel guilt. Guilt is a powerful emotion because it connects the heart to reflection. When she starts feeling guilty, she begins to see her actions from your perspective. Maybe she remembers how much you cared, how consistent you were, and how she didn't reciprocate. That guilt grows with every day of your silence because she has no closure. You didn't argue, you didn't plead, you simply withdrew. That leaves her imagination to fill in the blanks, and the mind always fills silence with meaning. The more time passes, the more her emotional attachment transforms. It's no longer just about missing your presence, it's about missing how she felt when you were around. That's a critical distinction. People don't miss people as much as they miss feelings. And when she realizes that you were the source of a feeling she can't find elsewhere, that's when your silence becomes magnetic. She'll start comparing you to everyone else, and no one will match the calm, grounded energy you brought. Your silence also becomes a reflection of strength, and strength is deeply attractive. It's not the kind of strength that comes from dominance or aggression. It's emotional strength. The ability to detach, to remain composed, and to not react from ego. That's rare, and she senses it. In a world where most people chase instant gratification, your ability to stay still, to hold your peace, sends a powerful message. It tells her that you're not emotionally dependent on her anymore. That kind of independence changes the entire emotional landscape between you. As months go by, her attachment either fades completely or transforms into something deeper. If her connection with you is shallow, she'll move on. But if it was genuine, your silence will only intensify it. The mind naturally romanticizes what it can't have. She'll start idealizing the best parts of your connection, forgetting the conflicts, and focusing on the bond. That's how attraction and longing rebuild themselves in the quiet. You're not doing anything to make her miss you. Your absence is doing the work for you. Eventually, she reaches a point where she has to make a choice. Either she suppresses what she feels and stays silent too, or she breaks the silence herself. If she does, it won't be because you chased her. It'll be because she couldn't ignore what your silence revealed. That's the true test of emotional connection. When you stop giving energy and she starts reaching out, that's when you know the bond was real. But even if she doesn't, your silence still gives you clarity. Because no response is also a response. What's most powerful about this entire process is that it doesn't require effort, it requires restraint. Silence doesn't chase, it reveals. It doesn't demand, it exposes. It doesn't manipulate, it clarifies. When you stay silent from a place of strength and peace, you allow her emotions to surface naturally. You give her space to feel what she couldn't feel when you were always available. That's when emotional truth rises to the surface. So when you go silent for months, remember, it's not a game. It's not about punishment or pride. It's about emotional reality. You're allowing time and distance to reveal what's authentic. You're giving her the freedom to choose, and in doing so, you're showing that your love doesn't depend on control. If she truly felt something real, your silence will amplify it. If she didn't, it will fade quietly, and you'll have your answer without saying a word. That's the beauty of masculine silence. It doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it doesn't explain. It simply stands firm in truth, and as she sits with her thoughts, battling between ego and emotion, she begins to understand that your silence was never about distance. It was about discovery. It tested her emotional connection, revealed her true attachment, and taught her the value of a man who doesn't need to speak to be felt. When a man chooses silence, everything changes. The power dynamic that once defined the relationship begins to shift in ways she never expected. In the beginning, she felt certain about her place. She knew you cared, she knew you'd reach out, and she knew that no matter what she did, you'd be there waiting. That certainty gave her comfort and at times even a sense of control. But when you go silent, truly silent, with no games, no mixed signals, no emotional outbursts, something begins to unravel inside her. The balance of emotional power reverses. The man who once seemed predictable now becomes a mystery, and the woman who once felt secure now finds herself questioning everything. That's when the shift happens. The moment she starts to miss you, not because you're gone, but because your silence forces her to feel the weight of what she lost. Before the silence, you might have been the one putting in the effort, texting first, trying to make plans, showing interest, and keeping the connection alive. You gave your energy freely, thinking it would deepen the bond, but instead it made her comfortable. She felt your consistency and began to take it for granted. Your attention became her normal, something she didn't have to earn, and in that space, attraction slowly started to fade. When effort becomes predictable, it loses its value. But when you pull back, when you stop trying to make something happen, she's suddenly confronted with an unfamiliar experience, your absence, and that's when the mind begins to play tricks on her. The human mind craves certainty, especially in relationships. When that certainty disappears, anxiety follows. In your silence, she starts to lose the emotional assurance she once felt. She begins to wonder why you haven't reached out, why you're not checking in, why you've gone quiet for so long. At first, she might dismiss it with pride, telling herself she doesn't care. But deep down, the loss of control bothers her. She starts checking her phone more often, replaying your last interaction, and imagining what you might be thinking. Every unanswered question builds emotional pressure. And that's when she begins to feel the shift. You're no longer the one seeking her validation. She's the one seeking yours. This is the power of silence when it comes from genuine self-respect. You're not using it to manipulate, you're using it to reclaim your energy. When you stop chasing, you communicate something words never could. I don't need you to feel complete. That message hits deep because it challenges her subconscious assumptions. Before, she might have believed you were emotionally dependent on her, that your happiness revolved around her responses, but now your silence shows her a different truth, that your world doesn't stop without her in it. That realization is both confusing and magnetic. Confusing because it disrupts her understanding of the dynamic, and magnetic because independence is deeply attractive. She begins to see you differently. The man who once seemed eager now seems composed. The man who once sought validation now radiates self-assurance. That transformation in your energy changes everything. She starts to feel the absence not just of your attention, but of your presence, your calm, your stability, your masculine grounding. Women are emotional by nature. They feel energy more than they process words. And when a man with strong emotional presence disappears, it leaves a void. That void is not easily filled because what she's missing isn't just communication. It's the feeling of being connected to a man who knows his value. As weeks turn into months, that absence starts to grow heavier. The silence you've maintained becomes a mirror reflecting her emotions back at her. Every day you remain quiet, you're showing restraint, discipline, and strength qualities that few people possess. And those qualities make her feel something she might not have felt before, admiration. She begins to see you as someone who operates differently, someone who doesn't react out of weakness but chooses his peace over chaos. That's when the respect returns. And where there's respect, attraction can grow again. There's also a psychological process unfolding here. When someone feels they've lost control in a relationship, their brain tries to restore balance. In her mind, she starts looking for signs of why things changed. She replays conversations, thinks about her behavior, and tries to connect the dots. Maybe she remembers times when she pulled away or tested your patience. Maybe she recalls moments when she acted indifferent, expecting you to chase harder. Now, in hindsight, those moments look different. She begins to realize that every time she pushed, you responded with patience and consistency, and now that patience is gone, that contrast wakes her up emotionally. The more you stay silent, the more she starts to wonder what's going on in your world. Have you moved on? Have you met someone else? Are you happier without her? Those thoughts become recurring. What once gave her confidence, your predictability, now makes her anxious. That uncertainty reignites her curiosity, and curiosity leads to attraction. Because the truth is, people value what they can't easily have. When you stop making yourself available, you become rare. And rarity creates desire. Your silence also sends a powerful subconscious message. You're not fighting for attention, you're attracting it naturally. You're not chasing what's not choosing you. This kind of energy reversal is what makes her start missing you. She doesn't just miss your voice or your text, she misses how your attention made her feel. She starts longing for the emotional safety that came with your consistency. And now, instead of you wondering what she's thinking, she's wondering about you. That mental shift changes everything. The man who once felt like he was on the losing end of emotional investment now stands in his power while she begins to question her choices. What's fascinating about this transformation is how silent strength always speaks louder than desperate words. When you try to prove your worth through communication, it weakened your position because it showed emotional dependency. But when you withdraw and focus on yourself, it naturally communicates confidence. It says, I know who I am, and I don't chase what's not choosing me. That mindset creates an energy of calm authority, and women feel that. They sense when a man is grounded in his purpose versus when he's seeking validation. The moment your silence stems from inner peace, not pride, it starts working in your favor. Eventually, she may begin to test the silence. Maybe she posts something online to get your attention. Maybe she asks mutual friends about you, or maybe she sends a casual text. These small moves are signs that the power has shifted. She's now the one seeking to reconnect, not because she's lonely, but because your silence forced her to reevaluate what you meant to her. She's realizing that the man she once thought she could easily replace isn't so replaceable after all. That's when your silence becomes a statement of value. But even if she doesn't reach out, that doesn't mean the silence failed. It means it revealed the truth. Because silence has two outcomes. Either it pulls her back toward you, or it exposes that she was never emotionally invested at your level. Both results are wins. You either regain her respect or gain your peace. The point of silence was never to manipulate her emotions. It was to reclaim your emotional center. And by doing that, you've already shifted the power dynamic, because true power is not about control. It's about self-mastery. As time continues, your focus shifts away from her entirely. You start investing your energy into your goals, your health, your growth. You begin to evolve into the man you were always meant to be, one who doesn't chase love, but attracts it naturally through purpose. And here's the irony. The more you grow, the more she feels your absence. Because she can sense the difference energetically, even from afar. She can feel that you're not waiting for her anymore, that you've moved into a state of peace and purpose. That emotional detachment is the ultimate reversal. The man who once needed her now lives fully without her, and that realization hits hard. What happens next depends on her emotional maturity. Some women will humble themselves and reach out, recognizing what they lost. Others will stay silent out of pride, even as they think about you every day. But either way, the balance has shifted permanently. You're no longer the one needing reassurance. You've reclaimed your power by detaching from outcome and letting silence speak for you. The beauty of this transformation is that it doesn't require manipulation or strategy. It simply requires self-control. The man who can walk away peacefully is the man who cannot be controlled emotionally. That's what makes your silence powerful. It's not passive, it's purposeful. It's you saying, I no longer participate in things that don't value me. And that quiet conviction is something every woman feels deeply. So when the power shifts and she begins to miss you, understand that it's not just about attraction, it's about realization. She realizes that she once had something genuine and stable, and she let it slip through her fingers. She realizes that your attention was a privilege, not a guarantee. She realizes that the man who once needed her validation now validates himself. And that realization is what keeps her up at night, thinking, wondering, and missing you more with each passing day. In the end, silence isn't about punishing her. It's about teaching through absence. It's about showing, not telling, what true strength looks like. Because when you stop needing her, she starts needing you. When you stop chasing, she starts remembering. And when you stop talking, your silence becomes the voice that echoes in her mind long after you're gone. That's the moment the power truly shifts from you needing her to her realizing she's the one who lost a man who finally understood his worth. Time and distance have a way of stripping away illusions. When you go silent for months, you create a space that reveals truth not just about her, but about the entire connection you shared. Silence removes the noise, the emotional fog, the mixed signals, and the constant back and forth that often keep people stuck in cycles of uncertainty. It's in that silence that the real answers begin to surface. You stop wondering what she feels because time starts to show you. Either she reaches out because she truly values the bond, or she fades into the background because her feelings were never as deep as you thought. In both outcomes, you gain clarity, and clarity is freedom. At first, she might not realize what your silence represents. She may think you're just taking a break, cooling off, or trying to make her miss you. But as the days turn into weeks and those weeks stretch into months, the silence begins to take on a different meaning. It's not just about communication anymore, it's about presence. She begins to sense that something in you has changed. You're not waiting, you're not watching, you're living. That realization alone forces her to reflect, because when someone truly cared and now they're gone without bitterness or explanation, it sends a message stronger than words. You've moved on with peace, not resentment. And peace is powerful. During this time, her mind goes through phases. At first, she might convince herself she's fine, that she doesn't need to reach out, that she's in control. Pride becomes her shield. She'll tell herself she's doing the right thing by staying silent, by not breaking first. But pride can only hold up for so long before emotion begins to seep through the cracks. Because emotional bonds don't disappear with time, they reveal themselves through it. The longer you remain silent, the louder her thoughts become. Every quiet day becomes a reminder that you're not chasing anymore. That absence begins to stir feelings she didn't expect: curiosity, guilt, and eventually longing. The beauty of silence is that it creates contrast. When you were constantly reaching out, she never got the chance to feel what life was like without you. She never had to experience the emptiness of your absence. But now she does. She starts to feel the void where your energy used to be. The texts that once filled her mornings are gone. The calls that made her evenings brighter no longer come. And as that pattern continues, the void becomes undeniable. That's when she starts to miss the subtle things: your tone, your patience, your calm energy, your consistency. Those little details that once seemed ordinary now feel irreplaceable. She begins to wonder about you, not in a casual way, but in a deep, unsettling way. What are you doing now? Who are you with? Are you thinking about her at all? Every question she asks herself reveals one truth: she still cares, even if she doesn't want to admit it. Time and silence have a way of stripping away denial. You can't ignore emotions forever. The longer she sits in that uncertainty, the more she starts to feel the emotional consequence of her actions. She starts to see that your silence isn't just absence, it's a mirror reflecting her behavior back at her. And that's where regret begins to creep in. Because now, with distance, she can finally see the situation from a new perspective. The emotions that clouded her judgment before are gone. The ego that made her push you away doesn't feel so satisfying anymore. She starts replaying the moments she dismissed your effort, the times she ignored your messages, or when she acted like she didn't care. Those moments start to sting because there's no way to undo them now. Silence turns those memories into lessons. She realizes she had something genuine and her pride cost her connection. But it's not just regret she feels, it's realization. Time apart allows her to reflect on what made you different. Maybe she's met other men since then. Maybe she's been on dates, had conversations, even felt temporary attraction, but none of it feels the same. That's because what she's searching for isn't just attention, it's emotional resonance. And that's what you gave her. You didn't just talk, you understood. You didn't just chase, you cared. You didn't just exist in her life, you impacted it. Time exposes that difference. The longer she goes without you, the more she feels it. For you, silence becomes your greatest teacher too. While she's reflecting on her emotions, you're learning about yourself. You begin to understand that peace is more valuable than attention. That chasing validation drains your energy, while detachment restores your power. You start focusing on your goals, your growth, your purpose. The same silence that once felt like emptiness becomes your sanctuary. It gives you clarity about who you are without needing her approval. And as you evolve, the energy around you shifts. You no longer look back with bitterness. You look back with understanding. That emotional stability becomes magnetic, not just to her, but to everyone around you. As time passes, she might begin to test the silence. Maybe she likes a post, sends a small text, or asks about to you through mutual friends. These are subtle attempts to reestablish connection without fully confronting her emotions. She's testing the waters, trying to see if you'll respond. But here's the truth. Time and distance don't just test her. They test you too. They test your discipline, your boundaries, your commitment to peace. How you respond to a reappearance reveals whether you've truly grown or if you're still attached to the old dynamic. Because if you've used the silence wisely, you'll no longer feel the same emotional pull. You'll see things clearly, without illusion. Silence reveals intentions. If she truly values the connection, she'll reach out not just because she misses attention, but because she's ready to rebuild with maturity. You'll feel that difference in her tone, her words, and her consistency. But if her reach out is shallow, driven by curiosity or loneliness, you'll recognize that too. That's the beauty of distance. Time gives you discernment. You start to see who's meant to stay in your life and who was only meant to teach you a lesson. Sometimes she won't reach out at all. And that's okay. Because that silence speaks volumes too. It tells you that the emotional investment was one-sided, that she was never truly connected at the depth you were. It's painful, yes, but it's liberating. Because knowing the truth, no matter how hard it is, sets you free. You stop living in uncertainty, hoping she'll come around. Instead, you accept what is and you move forward with peace. That's how you win in silence, not by getting her back, but by getting yourself back. Time also has a strange way of revealing attraction through contrast. The man she once saw as too available now feels unattainable. The man she once took for granted now feels distant, focused, and grounded. And the more she feels that difference, the more she begins to admire it. Women are naturally drawn to strength, not just physical, but emotional. Your ability to walk away, stay silent, and remain composed shows her that you're not a man who settles for less than mutual respect. That realization can shift her perception entirely. What she once overlooked becomes exactly what she wants again. But the truth is, by the time she reaches that realization, you've already changed. You're no longer waiting for her to see your worth. You've already seen it yourself. That's what time and silence are meant to do. They're not tools for revenge or manipulation. They're paths to awareness. They strip away the neediness, the emotional dependency, and the ego-driven desire to be validated. What's left is clarity, strength, and peace. So when months pass and she finally feels the full impact of your absence, she'll come to understand something she never realized before. Your silence wasn't about ignoring her, it was about honoring yourself. It was about stepping back from what didn't serve you, so that both of you could see things clearly. If she truly loved you, your silence will bring her back, humbled and aware. If she didn't, your silence will make room for someone who will. Either way, time and distance reveal everything you need to know. Because silence doesn't chase, it exposes. It doesn't manipulate, it clarifies, and it doesn't weaken you, it strengthens your foundation. Every day you remain silent from a place of peace. You're sending a message without saying a word. You are whole on your own. That realization echoes in her mind long after the words fade. She may not say it, but she'll feel it. She'll understand that your silence wasn't emptiness, it was power. The kind of power that comes from knowing your worth, protecting your energy, and allowing time to reveal what words never could. In the end, silence teaches both of you something valuable. It teaches her that love taken for granted eventually disappears. It teaches you that peace is worth more than constant effort that goes unappreciated. Time and distance become the ultimate truth tellers, separating illusion from reality. So, when you go silent for months, don't fear the outcome. Whether she returns or stays gone, you win. Because silence, when it comes from strength, never leaves you at loss. It leaves you with wisdom, clarity, and a deeper connection to yourself. And that is something no one can take away.